This week, news emerged of Aprilia's Tuono 660 concept being trademarked, which means that we'll almost certainly see it on the road as a 2021 model, perhaps announced later this year. So in today's video, we'll take a look at the details that we already know about what I think will make for an awesome road bike. But before we get started, if you're new here and you want to see more of the latest rumours and news about the best new motorcycles for 2021, then please do remember to hit subscribe. The Tuono 660 story starts in 2018 at EICMA with the unveiling of the Aprilia RS 660 concept. This bike takes the front two cylinders of their mighty V4 engine and turns it into a lean, lightweight 660cc 270-degree parallel twin-driven sports bike. The reception of the RS 660 was pretty positive, especially with regards to the looks, and a year later it was announced at EICMA 2019 that it would go into production. And we got a better look at the specs there. The engine is said to produce around 100 horsepower, the weight is nice and light at 169 kilograms dry, brakes are high spec, radially mounted Brembos on 320mm discs, suspension comes from KYB and is said to be adjustable, and it gets some premium electronics that would normally be the reserve of a high-end, high-capacity sports bike. There's an IMU which enables cornering traction control and ABS, 3 road riding modes and 2 track riding modes, engine braking control, wheelie control, an up and down quick shifter, cruise control, and even lean sensitive headlights. I was super excited about this bike. I think it was my favourite of the whole EICMA show last year. At a time when sports bikes and nakeds are getting up to and above 200 horsepower, it's nice to see a manufacturer putting out a bike that has power figures that are much more realistic for road riding purposes. There's not a great deal of direct competition in this segment too. The only other 650 parallel twin sports bike is the Ninja 650 from Kawasaki, but that's more entry level and doesn't have a lot of the premium features of the RS 660. Needless to say, I'll be excited to try this one when it hits the road. At the same time as unveiling the production RS 660 at EICMA 2019, Aprilia also had a Tuono 660 concept present. It makes sense that they're thinking of other ways to expand upon the 660 platform, and a Tuono version is the most obvious first step given the success of the Tuono V4 and Tuono 125. Let's take the Tuono V4 RR for example. It takes much of the performance pedigree of the RS V4 RR but tames it a little and adds some practicality for the road. The riding position is a little more upright owing to the standard handlebars as opposed to clip-ons, which gives the Tuono some extra comfort at the expense of out-and-out aerodynamics. The tail section is redesigned in order to facilitate a more substantial passenger seat, and the engine and gearbox are adapted to the road too, with 100cc's more capacity, allowing for a torquier mid-range tune and shorter gear ratios favouring acceleration over racetrack top speeds. For reference, the 1000cc RS V4 makes 201 horsepower at 13,000 RPM and 115 Nm of peak torque at 10,500 RPM. The 1077cc Tuono V4's road bias gives it 175 horsepower at 11,000 RPM and 121 Nm at 9,000 RPM. Still a ridiculous amount of power for the road, but you can see what they're getting at. So from the looks of it, the 660 will get much of the same Tuono treatment. For a starter, there's the half fairing to aesthetically distinguish it from the RS, giving it that typical Tuono style. Regular handlebars are present as expected, as are pillion foot pegs and a decent pillion seat. What's not visible in the pictures, of course, is any change to the engine tune or gearing, but I've read that it'll make more like 95 horsepower to the 100 of the RS. If that's the case, I'd expect it to occur lower down the revs with possibly more torque, and the revised gear ratios might be present too. There's also talk of a 45 horsepower beginner-friendly version for Europe as well. To say I was already excited about the RS 660, I'm looking forward to this bike even more. To me, a lean, mid-powered machine like this would make the perfect weekend weapon for where I live in the southeast of England. The roads are typically tight, lower speed lanes rather than the quick sweeping bends that you might find further north or in Europe. How it performs in terms of sales, though, is another matter, as the middleweight naked market is particularly crowded. The MT-07 sets the benchmark in terms of decent performance at the most accessible price point, although it makes a bit less power from a similar 270-degree parallel twin setup, and its electronics package is far more simple. A wet weight of 182 kilograms puts it in a similar ballpark to the Tuono 660, and it's nigh on impossible that Aprilia will get anywhere near the $6.5 grand starting price. At the more premium end of this market, we have the Triumph Street Triple RS, a massively successful bike for Triumph, and for good reason. It's a versatile machine with sweet handling, and the 765cc Triple makes a fair bit more power than the Tuono is expected to at 120 horsepower. Brembo M50 brakes, adjustable Showa forks and Öhlins shock, and an up and down quick shifter all match the Aprilia for specs, although there's no IMU for advanced rider aids like cornering traction control and ABS. And then there's the new KTM 890 Ducat to consider as well. The 890cc parallel twin makes similar power to the Street Triple RS, and it has the mechanical components to match. But where it outdoes the Street Triple and matches the Aprilia is in the electronics department, with many of the IMU-enabled rider aids included. So with both the power and the tech, perhaps this is the ultimate benchmark in the middleweight naked category, and with both the KTM and the Triumph costing about $10.5 grand, the Tuono 660 will have to be somewhere in that region in order to be competitive. One area in which I'm certain that the Aprilia beats the KTM though is looks. It's absolutely stunning, so let me know what you make of the Tuono 660 in the comments below, and I'd also love to know which your pick of the middleweight nakeds would be. I'm sure I'll have missed a couple, so let me know your thoughts, and if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.